There's something exquisite and perfect about saying nothing, about silence. It's similar to the Buddhist uncarved block. It's impossible to be wrong if you don't have an opinion. At this time of year, the end of October, the energy of the environment is quietening, it's sinking and moving inward. The plant life is moving its energy down into the earth. And it's colder outside. So people tend to spend more time indoors, become more introspective. And I think that's in line with the ideas, feelings around Halloween, which will be in a few days. I don't think we often really take the time to contemplate the depth of what this time really is about. In my opinion, it's a time where we naturally tune our awareness inward, as well as to the awareness of the natural part, the part of nature that we call death. As I said intentionally with the plants are not dying. For example, the trees are not dying when they lose their leaves. The energy is just going inward and down into the roots. The purpose and focus of the plant is not in doing in the world. It's about retreat and transformation from the world. So it's an inner gathering. And I think that it's also the time when some people get sick. Some people have decided it's flu season. And there's also, I think, a lot of fears that come up around this time. And that is perhaps because it was a more dangerous time of the year. Wintertime was a more dangerous time of the year where food was scarce and conditions were more difficult. And even though it's not the dead of winter, there's the anticipation of it. I think it's interesting, again, that it's the fear and the anticipation of it as opposed to the experience. So in this time, we are confronted with our fears, our fear of death, our fear of loss, our fear of our own imagination, even. All those things that we've decided are associated with Halloween, skeletons and witches and ghosts. I think it's always very powerful to face our fears and to look at our fears, to just sit with them, not to elaborate and make them bigger, but to face them. I'm not a big fan of horror movies because I have plenty of my own fears. I don't need to make up things to be afraid of. But when I consider things, for example, fear of a authoritarian government, fear of loss of housing or employment or money or food, these kind of survival fears, when I confront them and when I sit with them, I also become aware of my ability to respond, my ability to face things. And I think that's how we dispel these fears. Halloween's also associated with the ancestors that have passed on, so the dead. And I think that also means the parts of ourself that we've let go of, that we've outgrown. So I think it's a time to reflect on that as well. And the power that we have to shed layers of ourselves. Eventually, there is a rebirth. Right now is the process of letting go. And that's not an easy process often. That involves some discomfort. There's good reason to have fear sometimes, or rather the rationale is legitimate. Fear of death has guided us, guided humanity throughout the ages to guard itself, but not irrationally. What I mean is that if we examine our fears, then we will have insight as to what appropriate action to take. But if we avoid our fears, We may irrationally reject the impulse that we might have that would be sound advice. So along with the suggestion that I've made many times that we take the time to introspect, to meditate, to listen within, in a way that's a kind of death. And I think that's why there is some resistance to it. So just like the tree that is no longer producing leaves, when we sit in silent contemplation, we seem to not be doing anything. We're not being productive. We're not entertaining ourselves or other people. And so there's a devaluing of that practice. What does it produce? And perhaps sometimes it doesn't produce anything other than acclimate us to that stillness, that simplicity, that silence. You might even call it the void. And I think that this is an important reference point. Understanding that void, that emptiness, and how all activity, all thought, all experience is juxtaposed to this nothingness. The nothingness is just as important as all manifestation. So this time of the year, the time when the sun is moving through the constellation of Scorpio, we have an opportunity to naturally tune in to this transformative void space. Some say it's when the veil is the thinnest. Perhaps it's because our attachment or our faith in the world is at its weakest. We see the decay. We see the flimsiness of the structures of the world in comparison to nature's power. It puts everything in context. It puts everything in its place. There is no life without death. But what is death? I believe death is really the opportunity to see the life that exists without form. So, essence, spirit, soul, that underlying intelligence that exists even when there is no appearance, no phenomena. I think if we can tune into that, we'll find a deep sense of satisfaction, a sense of immortality and transcendence of our fears, Our fears come from our attachment to things of the material world. And so our fear is about losing those things, losing control of those things. But if we allow ourselves to touch that void, to feel the spaciousness and peace of it, then loss becomes less scary. It's more like a pause. It's the space between breaths. It's a place where we can reunite with that deeper part of ourselves. I really enjoy this time of the year. I have a lot of Scorpio emphasis in my zodiac chart, and I have a lot of scorpionic traits. And it's interesting when it's the middle of summer and things are busy, I'm almost fighting against that to take time to find stillness, because I'm wanting to be active as it's the time to be active, when the sun is in its fullness. It's invigorating us. But now I find it quite easy to slow down and go deep. I think this is what we should be aiming for, is aligning ourselves, tuning ourselves with the energies of the seasons, and understanding astrology and the zodiac can help us do that. Each sign reflects a stage of the year, with 3 signs for each season. So this attunement can really help us to live in balance and reap the benefits of these natural cycles. They are cycles of evolution. And each year we should be growing and developing ourselves in various ways, not just in outward ways, but also in inward ways. And as we go through the winter, that's where the emphasis is on the inner parts of ourself. In truth, these aren't parts. They cannot easily be divided, but it is helpful to think of them in parts and distinct attributes, because that's how we think. We do think about things by dissecting them and comparing them. However, in this void space, all things are dissolved. And that is the uniqueness of this time, of the time of Scorpio, where we see things blending together, dissolving into each other. There is an aversion to this because it is decay. And there are agents of decay. There are aspects of putrefaction and dis-ease that facilitate this breakdown, this humbling, and this moving inward. And I think if we are at peace, if we understand this process, then those agents of decay can be much subtler. It doesn't need to be a death. It doesn't need to be a physical death or a job loss or the flu. However, the flu can be quite useful when it sends us to bed to have a think for a week without distraction. And really that's what we should do when we get sick, is not binge on Netflix, but instead become very quiet and listen to the pain, listen to the discomfort that process is facilitating. It's bringing all of those things into our awareness, all of the dysfunctional parts, all the stagnation and congestion, all the sinful things that we've been doing the rest of the year. And this process, this painful process, is actually very helpful and healthy. Too often people are resisting it. They're getting flu shots, which are actually just making their bodies more toxic. They're taking NyQuil because they don't want to feel the pain. Again, this is a resistance to what is. And it's not seizing the opportunity that nature is presenting us with. I personally rarely get any kind of flu or cold. I believe it's because I meditate. That's one reason. I also try to not be sinful. And by sinful, I just mean missing the mark on what is healthy. By meditating regularly, I am aware of how to align with nature, how to behave in ways that are healthy for me. The beautiful thing about that guidance is it's not domineering, it's not demanding, it's subtle, it's gentle. It feels like my own good ideas that are guiding me. So I invite you to take this time to get quiet, to tune inwards, to let go of your busy schedules and outward productivity. Doesn't mean you have to stop doing everything. But emphasize, take the time to be quiet. And let yourself dissolve a bit. Take time to just listen to the rain. To lazily drift. To have no devices. To have the room just lit by the light from the windows. Allow your mind to just sink into the earth. Allow yourself to feel your painful feelings. Allow yourself to mourn. I believe that through embracing death, we can have eternal life. Thanks for watching.